Hello, I'm Will, the Paint Beast, and today I'm going to show you how to use transparent paint to make your underpainted mini come alive. Hey there fellow Paint Beasts. In this video I'm going to cover the second step of what the community is now referring to as Slapchop. In this video I'm going to guide you through the process of adding vibrant blocks of colour to your underpainted miniatures. Along the way we'll focus on getting the underpainting to work for you, thinning your paint so you get the right consistency, and glazing layers of contrast paint. By practicing the methods I'm about to show you, you'll master the basics of transparent paint and give your pile of plastic the love it deserves. So let's head over to the painting desk and see how transparent paints can transform your miniatures. Okay, so you followed what I did in my last video, which should be linked somewhere on the screen right now, and you've got your miniature to this stage. You've built up some volumetric sort of lighting using overbrushing and dry brushing, and you're ready to put some paints on. The whole reason that we've done this is so that we can utilize sort of speed paints and contrast paints and just like transparent paints just to get some color on there and make this guy ready for the tabletop. Anything like, you know, edge highlighting, blending and stuff like that, that can come later on. We just want to get the bare minimum colors on here, so we can get them on the tabletop, maybe take them to tournaments, maybe you're in a hurry to get some stuff done, or you want to feel accomplished. You know, you might not have much time to paint miniatures and you just want to get something done. Well, this video, or this step, will show you how I go about taking this guy from sort of the grayscale here and putting some colour on him. So what you'll need: some clean water. I have 2 jars of water pretty much always. One to rinse the brush in straight away, get most of the pigment out. The second as a sort of a second stage rinse, just to keep my brushes in good quality, even the older ones. As you'll see here, we've got 2 different brushes for this. We have got an older brush, which hopefully will pick up on the screen. This brush I've had for a number of years and is sort of past its best, but is good for stuff like contrast paints where, you know, I don't care too much about the brush. And then we have a nice, almost new brush with a nice fine point, and that's for the more detailed work, because you'll see in here on his face he's got some like smaller metallic details that we want to be a bit careful of. I have a pipette. Now this will be for measuring out drops of paint, which is very important because we want to keep our colours and mixes consistent. I've got a not very clean painting tray just to put the colours in. Don't worry, none of the colours in here already will be picked up. Bit of paper towel just to make sure that our brushes stay clean and that there's not too much moisture on our brushes. And then we've got our paints. So quite key to this method of painting is the medium. This is going to thin our paints down and make them a little bit more translucent. We've got possibly my favourite colour, and that's Akhelian Green. This is going to be pretty much the foundation colour for this miniature. We've got some Leviadon Blue. That will be mixed with the Akhelian Green to colour the scales. I've got some Terradon Turquoise, which is kind of like a nice sort of dark jadey colour, and that can go on the weapons and sort of the stone elements. And then we're going to sort of try and trick the eye into some non-metallic metals. So we're going to try and use some contrast Iyanden Yellow for maybe some gold. So let's get cracking. Right, so the first thing we're going to do is measure out some contrast medium and some Akhelian Green, and we're going to be putting that on sort of all of the sort of flesh areas. Now I know this guy's covered in scales, but we're just going to put it like sort of on the arms and stuff like that, and we're going to make it fairly thin, and we might go over it in 2 coats. So first things first, give everything a good shake up. I have a little ceramic ball in this, so it'll make a bit of a noise, but we're just getting the pigment all nice and shaken up. That's very much more important with these types of paints than I think other paints. Other paints you still need to give a good shake, but these ones, they separate and you sometimes have to spend quite a while shaking them up. So first things first, we're going to put our pipette into the contrast medium. We're going to take, we'll start with 3 drops. So we're going to suck some of that up there. We're going to go 1, 2, 3. Actually, let's make it 6 because he's quite big. 4, 5, 6. Put the rest back in there. And just sort of like squeegee that in the water just to get the remains out. There. Right. We're going to go for an equal number, equal parts of this. So, whoops. So, suck some of that up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a 1-to-1 ratio. Just going to squeeze some of that in there. And we are just going to take 1 drop of water just to lubricate everything a little bit. 1. Okay, cool. We'll take our brush that we don't really care about too much. Maybe just give it a little bit of a wash of white, and we're going to mix that up in there like that. And then quickly just pop it back in the water. Make sure all of the water's has come off the brush with a bit of paper towel. And then one thing I always find important to do is just to test this, maybe on your thumb, just so you can see the consistency. That's good. Cool. So we can load the brush up, wipes most of the excess off. We're going to start possibly with the darker area. It doesn't matter if we mess up down here too much. And this is just to see how it's going to be applied to the miniature. Cool. We're not looking for like the classic contrast method where it pools. We're kind of looking for a glaze. We want to work slightly quickly because we don't want this to dry too much. You can see I'm trying to stick to sort of like the segments. You can go quite far on one brush, but it's important not to go too far. So we're going to leave it at that. We're going to wash the brush in the first pot of water, rinse it in the second, pop it on the paper towel. Don't put the brush in your mouth. It's hard, I know, especially for seasoned painters, but that's how you get ill. I had a sore throat for like 6 months because I kept putting my brushes in my mouth. It's not a very good habit to have. Okay, we're going to do it again. Maybe we didn't need this much paint, but what I can do is I can put it in one of my spare pots and use it later. We're just going to do this again until we've covered up all of the flesh parts. And you can go onto some of the scales as well because we kind of want that gradient on there. And you'll see that with the same thickness of paint, you'll get that gradient that you saw, that you made in the last stage, where I need a little bit more there, where you've made the top areas lighter than the bottom areas, and you should see that once the contrast paint has dried. Again, we haven't got too much paint on the brush at the moment. We're just using this as a glaze because we don't want to cover up the highlighting we've done in the last step. You can already see how that's lighter at the top than it is at the bottom. That means we almost, we don't have to do so much highlighting. And if we do want to do some proper highlighting with like some glazes and layers, we have a map sketched out where we need to do that. So I'm just going to carry on painting this. Wipe most of the contrast paint off the brush. Again, just glaze it. Just glaze. And always pushing the paint into the darkest bits. So if you notice it's pooling, just pull that up into the darkest areas, just to make sure that you don't put too much paint. It doesn't get too dark on the brightest areas that you've worked on. So this is a scale up here, but I want to sort of blend it later on. So we're just going to use the absolute last drops in the brush, and we're going to just give that a little bit of a glaze over there. Wash that off. Keep doing the same. I do like these miniatures, they're so detailed. They're very, very cool looking crocs as well. So the free tip in this is just, you know, make sure you paint something you want to paint. Don't get stuck in getting bored and stuff you don't. Now I'm not going to try and paint any more of the face with this brush. I'm going to go back later and use the finer brush for that. So we're going to move on to the arms now. And again, we can sort of like go up into these scales because we're going to blend the darker colour in later on. As you'll see now, you can see where the shadows sit. So where we concentrated on the top areas in the last video, like here and here and here, you can see how much lighter they are than these two areas here. That looks really cool. It's quite realistic. Obviously, you don't need to be super realistic with stuff like tabletop miniatures because this guy isn't real. Like, so there's no need to be super realistic unless you want to. But this gives an air of realism to it. Again, like on the bottom areas, you don't need to be super neat, just as long as you don't apply too much paint. Because these are all it's going to be quite dark down here. And you'll notice even though there's barely any paint, sorry, any sort of light paint on the bottom of the tail, you still get that nice blue tone. And that's because the first step in our last video, we did that overbrushing step where we put the darkest grey all over and sort of smushed it in everywhere. And areas like these feet are great as well because they're blocked off by this, so you can sort of like just quickly run your brush around. We're not going to worry about the claws because we'll just paint those in with some sort of bone colours later on. You could go over with something like Skeleton Horde, but for maybe 6 claws, it's not worth it. I'm just going to carry on like this, and we're going to do some blending. So actually what I'll do is I'll just put a little bit of this on here. You probably won't notice it in the end because we're going to be using Leviadon Blue to darken the scales, but it kind of all sort of goes in together. All of these steps sort of tie in. You don't need to think too much about it at this stage. You're just putting the colours in. Like I said before, it's like paint by numbers at this step. This colour goes in section number 1, the next colour goes in section number 2, etc, etc. Right, where else needs this colour? Probably this bit here. If you feel you've put too much on, just quickly keep going over it and sort of expanding the area. I think that I've put too much on here. I'm trying not to touch the bits I've done before. Where else do we need to put it? Just on the top of those arms there. Right. And what I don't want to do is bleed onto these big scales because they're, you know, it's quite nice to have that separation on the big scales. On the smaller scales, you want that blend. Maybe on the bigger ones, we just want a bit of separation just to make sure that whoever's looking at this knows that this is flesh, they're the big scales. These two types of scales, they, you know, the flesh and the smaller scales, they kind of blend into one. So you can tell I'm waffling because I don't want to have to edit this. I'm not that lazy really. Or maybe I am. No, I'm not that lazy. I'm showing you how to paint. Put a lot of work into this. If at any point you find what I'm doing useful or you think it's interesting, please like, comment and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you can tell when I've uploaded a video next. I'm aiming to do this. I want to do it once a month, but don't know if the time's going to allow, so maybe once every 6 weeks. Right, I'm almost done with this layer. I'm going to go on and we're going to mix. Oh no, I need to do more of the face and the hands. I'm forgetting things. Right. So we have to be slightly more careful now. We're getting to areas that we don't want to blend into, like the hands. We don't want this to go onto the weapon. So we're going to paint the sort of handle of the weapon, I think, with the Terradon Turquoise sort of jade colour. And then the metallic parts of the weapon with yellow. Now the yellow is very, very transparent, so we want to try and not make work for ourselves. And when I say work for ourselves, what I mean is I don't want to have to go back over any areas with grey or white to try and rectify where the blue might show through onto the yellow, and you'll see that in a bit later. My voice has got all funny because I need water. Right, so we're almost finished with this brush, and we're going to go onto the smaller brush just to fill in these we're just going to smaller brush to go on some of these face details. Okay, just dip that in the water and then load some on there. Don't get the, there you go. Try and make it very concerted effort to not get the paint past the midpoint of this brush, because I don't want it to go up into the ferrule. In fact, I'm going to do that again because it started to seep up. Right. That's the important reason, one of the important reasons why you take the water out of the brush, so it doesn't sort of automatically sort of get sucked up the brush. Okay, let's see if I can do this while also filming perfectly. Let's manually focus on his head. There we go. Right, so I want to not touch this metallic area because I don't want any blue on it, because it will show right through the yellow. Just touched it slightly. That's okay. I've got a few reels on Instagram that show you what to do if you do accidentally touch an area with paint that you don't want to. It's just a simple case of just wicking it away with a clean brush. How do I get in here without touching that? Almost. There we go, done. Okay, cool. And you'll see that. Oh, I need to focus properly. There you go. So that's looking pretty good already, and all we've done is added a layer of contrast paint, just one. We've mixed it a little bit, made it a little bit thinner. Yeah. Right, so we're going to take the paint that we've already got in here, and we're going to add some Leviadon Blue. Now usually I'd mix this in a 1-1-1 concoction with contrast medium and Akhelian Green, but I think we've still got enough paint left in here, and we don't want to waste it, so I'm just going to put. So what do we use? We had 6 drops of each in here. We've probably used 3 drops of each, so I'm just going to pop another 3 drops in here, and that's just because we want these scales to be a bit darker. but we'll also put maybe a drop or two more of contrast medium in as well. So actually it's important that we make sure that the pipette is clean, or at least there's no paint floating around in there. We'll do the medium first because we don't want the pigment from the contrast paint in the medium and ruining it. So we're going to go 1, 2 more of those. Again, this isn't an exact science. You can test it out on maybe, you know, like a painted base or something like that beforehand, or just a tiny segment of the miniature. You don't have to worry too much. And then we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Might put one more in there because it doesn't look. Whoops, that was 2. See, it's not an exact art, but we're just trying to get a deeper colour than the Akhelian Green. And then we're going to take 1 drop of water, just dilute that a bit, just make it run easier. Back to our sort of messed up brush that we don't care so much about. Mix all that up. Rinse it. I mean, I say I don't care about it. I do care about it. It's taken me a long way. You're very good. Well done. Okay, now I'm going to show you on this leg, because we've tried to blend in a bit here, and we're going to start at this top edge there. We're going to draw from, we're going to go from the top down to the bottom. We're going to draw all of that paint away from the area that we're trying to make as a gradient. We're not putting too much on the brush here, just enough to go into the recesses, and just enough to sort of pull on the scales. Just gonna quickly whiz around and do exactly the same thing that we did with the Akhelian Green. But you can see there's 2 different tones of blue here now. There, it's very subtle on the camera, but at the end we'll do a showcase and you'll be able to see the actual difference between the 2. And at this point, I'm going to say, if you like my work and you'd like to support me more, obviously you can do all the things I mentioned earlier, like, comment, subscribe, etc. But you can also join my Patreon, of which I'd be very thankful if you did, because it's hard going. I feel like I've got a lot to give to the community. And it's all made easier by support from the patrons. We're gonna, well, I've started with more content. So like YouTube videos, you get the YouTube videos released early on Patreon. Guides of all sorts. And you get to chat to our cool Discord community, which I call the Paint Herd. Because I'm the paint beast, right? We move in herds. Yeah, whoops. So I made a mistake there and I was quick enough to be able to just mop it up with my finger. Okay. And because I'm not trying too hard, except for these metallic bits, to sort of, I'm not trying to miss any areas, because it doesn't matter if it goes onto the previous blue, because we want it kind of to sort of blend in together. And that's why we put the Leviadon Blue in with the Akhelian Green, because the Akhelian Green gives the blue that sort of base colour. So it's so we've got some of the main colour theme in this space. Sorry, in this colour. We're almost there on the scales now. Again, the reason we've kept this slightly thin is so that we don't overshadow all of the work that we did in the last video. We want to be able to see the underpainting that we've already done. We don't have to worry too much about going over the bits that we've just done. So this is probably the hardest part on the miniature, to get it to blend, because it's like a flat area. But if you start at the top, start at the tip of the nose and drag backwards, you'll deposit the pigment and make that gradient. Okay, so that's looking good. Because a lot of this behind the head is in shadow, get away with just putting a very tiny amount of the colour on there. Sorry if I keep going off the screen, I'm not so proficient at YouTube videos yet. Or at least the filming of them, I can watch them for days. If you think you got too much on your brush, just dab it on the paper towel. And then take it to the miniature. Here we go. So we're getting there now. I think the next step I'll show you is probably going to be maybe the jade, and we'll save the gold bits till last. See, I'm washing my brush fairly frequently, just because I don't want that contrast paint to dry too much on the brush. Let's get see how I just blended that in there. There's too much paint there. Wipe it away with your thumb, and it kind of creates this little blend. Let's see if I can do that closer to the camera. Let's do it here. So dragging that down. It's not perfect, but it will do. I suppose the main point here is, we're just trying to get this done not too fast, because I think I've always felt that you should enjoy this process, but fast enough that you feel accomplished in maybe a short amount of time if you don't have lots of time to paint, or if you've got say a tournament to go to, or if you're painting maybe as a gift for someone, or you just want to get it done. For me, I don't really understand the sort of painting, the speed painting phenomenon, because I enjoy painting quite a lot, so I want to do it as much as I can. And I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of time to do it. But I think, I know there's enjoyment in accomplishing things, but there's also enjoyment in the process. So I'm not too focused on speed painting. I like getting things done efficiently, and I like learning about how to do the most direct methods possible, but I don't particularly like, painting for the sake of painting. Painting has to be an activity to relax and enjoy for me. So I think that's there. There's a few little bits that I've missed, but I can go and pick those up later. But you can see the sort of difference in colour now, probably a bit more. It's not quite dry yet, but you can still see that all of the work that we did in the dry brushing video is still coming through on the scales, and we're still getting those volumetric highlights from the top. So if we look like that at not very good angle, but you can see it looks very much darker there than if you look from the top. Okay, now we're going to take our Terradon Turquoise, and we are going to paint the paint the stone elements. So we're just going to take, unfortunately we've lost some of that paint, so I could have probably been a bit more sparing, which I'm going to with this layer. I've got a spare pot somewhere I can put it in at the end of this video. So we're going to take a couple of drops of contrast medium, just 3, because, you know, I've just spent too much paint there. So it's going to be a 1-to-1 ratio again with 1 drop of water. 1, 2, 3. There you go. Just make sure there's no pigment left in the pipette, and then 1 drop of water. Take a little brush, mix that up. Again, I think this might be too much for what we're about to do, but nevertheless, we just learn to do better next time. Okay, so let's do the big boy first. Let's do this stone item here. So just going to do the underside first, just to make sure that we've got the right consistency and that we can see the highlighting that the dry brushing introduced, which we can. Then we're going to just glaze this over the top. This is a really cool weapon because it's got lots of little details that are perfect for speed paints and contrast paints, etc. Especially good for catching the edge of the brush when dry brushing. So doing this sort of slap chop underpainting is great on this miniature. This is the first time I've painted this particular design of Croxagore as well, so I've been wanting to since they released it. Since Games Workshop released it. It's very exciting. I'm having, it might not sound like it, but I am having the time of my life. Okay, cool. I think that's probably enough for that one. And like I like to stick to this sort of turquoisey colour because it's similar to the blue of the Croxagore, but just different enough to be, you know, to offset it. Now, what's happened here, I don't know if you can see it too well on screen. This particular section didn't get enough dry brushing in the last step, which is disappointing, and that's a mistake that I made, but I'm going to be highlighting this miniature so we can pick it up there. You still get a slight volumetric light there, but for the moment I'm not too happy with it. On this side it's much better, so it's likely that I just did it too quick in the last video. But we just do that. Oh look, and I've missed a bit of the blue on that scale, so actually it's quite good that we've got some left over from the last step, because I can go back and just get that bit that I missed. Okay, cool. So, oh no, actually we're not done. I want these bits to be jade as well, so we're going to go in there. Doesn't matter so much about being too careful on these bits. These aren't the focus of the miniature, as long as we don't get too much unnatural pooling like here. Just drag that way. Although we do have to be careful because we don't want to cover up any of these metallic bits with the jade colour like I did there. That would be a mistake, a dire mistake. Right. Okay. Doesn't matter if we get it on the fingers a little bit because they're blue as well. Excellent. Oh, focus. There we go. Cool, and now for the exciting part. Not that that wasn't all thoroughly riveting, but we are going to use some, we're going to try and get some sort of yellowy colours on here to mimic gold. Now I don't know whether I want to thin this yet or not, so we're gonna start by thinning it, and if it's too thin, we'll scrap that, and we will put some. We'll put no medium in it. So actually, sorry, always start with the medium. You don't want the colour to go in the clear medium because you'll have to buy another pot. So we're going to try 1 drop of that first, and then 1 drop of this. Ooh. I'm going to see how that works. I'm going to mix it in. We're not going to put any water in it at this stage because I just want to see how this works. Okay, so now I think that might be too bright. I think the consistency is right and the opacity is right, but it's too yellow. So what we're going to do about it? We're going to take another colour. I'm going to take Aggaros Dunes, sort of slightly brown. I usually use it for gold, metallic gold. So we're going to try and mix 1 drop in there and see what happens. So, there you go. Now to me that now looks too dark. And if that doesn't work, what we'll do is we'll just go back to just pure yellow. Or maybe we'll just add another drop of yellow in there. Okay, we'll go back to the weapon now. And there you go, that's better. It actually looks less bright, which I think is quite good. So again, this is quite thin, so it's great. It's catching all of the bits we want it to make it look like natural highlights. And at this point, we don't want it to pool too much, so if you find it's pooling too much, just wick it away and take some of the paint off your brush. We kind of got the consistency right straight away there, which was great. And what I'd encourage you to do is always play with colours a bit more. That's probably the most satisfying thing in miniature painting to me is, you know, just trying something new, and if it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, you can just either strip the mini, respray it, put it down and start something different. You know, there's no hard and fast rule for this. So I'll be very annoyed in the comments if people start going, well, you're not doing this properly and you're not doing that properly, because there's no proper way to do this. This is for fun. We are just trying to have fun. If you're not having fun while you're doing it, put it down, walk away for a little bit, come back later. If you're still not having fun, go and do something else. Play a video game. Don't do any more painting, because this is supposed to be fun. And if you like playing but don't like painting, you don't have to paint your miniatures. If you're going to a tournament, so you have to paint your miniatures, other people will do it for you. It just costs a lot of money, which is unfortunate. So maybe you do have to paint. I'm arguing myself in circles. Right, so I've just identified another area. This area here, this little bit, wasn't highlighted enough. So we'll just make sure that when we put some acrylic highlights on here, we focus a little bit more around that guy just there. And if you find that there's areas that are too bright, you can just, once this is all dry, just go over again with the same colour. that'll darken it down a bit. You want to be careful though not to cover the dry brushing step in too much paint, and too much dark paint as well, because you'll lose the effect that you've done and there's no point. I always feel that people that do a zenithal highlight and then paint over it with completely opaque paints, I just don't understand the reason other than maybe mapping out where the lighting is going to go. I don't tend to use zenithal, but maybe I will one day. Okay, cool. Right, you can stop listening to me waffle on. I think at this point, no, we've missed a bit. The bit's on his face. Here we go. So I'm using my finer detail brush now, just so I don't mess up any of the other bits of the face, because it will go green. And we're just going to tuck that. So you can see a little bit, sort of, maybe you can't. You see a little bit here. You can see the blue through the yellow. That's unfortunate, but it doesn't matter too much for this. Okay. So we're done. Now, if I wasn't talking so much, I think that would have only taken me maybe 20 minutes to get all of these colours on. And this guy is now pretty much ready. If I needed to take him to a tournament, other than this base bit, it's all painted. It's got more than 2 colours on it. And it actually looks pretty decent, especially the gold has come out much better than I thought it would. Sorry. Which is really good. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'll post some pictures on Instagram. Please like, comment and subscribe. And stick around for the show reel at the end. Thank you for joining me on this colourful journey into the world of transparent paints. I hope you've gained some valuable insights into how to enhance your miniatures with vibrant blocks of colour. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Small actions like that really help a new channel to grow. And if you want even more content and support, why not consider joining me on Patreon? The link is in the description. And just like these fine people, you'll get access to a bunch of extra treasure and goodies. So until next time, remember to unleash the paint beast within and get painting that plastic. Happy painting. Now this video shows the second step in what the community now calls Slapchop. Hey there fellow paint beasts. See, what I've done is I've not looked at this like before I've started speaking. I'm just trying to look down here and there at the same time. So let's not do that. Let's study